Okay. So, welcome. This is scanning the thought fields of TFT, novice and algorithm basic trained people. All you need to do is have had some experience with TFT. There, maybe you've read it in a book, my book, or Dr. Callahan's book, and tried some tapping, or seen it online and done some tapping. So, you may have taken the algorithm training, either online or a live training with myself or someone else. So, we're going to take a few minutes today and review psychological reversal. And it's a powerful concept. It's one in thought field therapy that is one of our most powerful healing tools. It was one of the first tools that Roger discovered and developed when he was doing his work. So psychological reversal, well, before that, why don't we just, you guys want to introduce yourselves just so people know who you are? And go ahead.
Me?
Who are you? Yeah, who are you
Oh,
and what do you know about
hi.
TFT? Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, actually, I just found TFT maybe a couple weeks ago. I was doing EFT before and didn't even know where it came from really. So I started researching TFT and found all the answers to everything I'd always been wondering about: why you do this, why you do that, where it comes from. And there's so many more tools, let's say. And so I got very interested, and I'm probably one of the people who's been watching your videos like 100 times because I'm going in and learning and then going back and getting mixed up on what am I doing. But I'm very excited to learn this because it's something I feel like, I don't know, it fits my personality. This thing, I'm not a therapist. I did a psychology degree a long time ago, and I don't work in the therapy field yet. I do something completely different. I'm actually farming right now. I'm calling you from Croatia. I live in Croatia.
Oh.
But I'm Canadian, so that's why I speak English. Everyone asks me, where did I get my English from? I'm Canadian.
Okay.
So this, I want to learn about it, and I want to be able to help people here. I meet a lot of people they had the war here 25 years ago.
Yeah.
A lot of them, I don't speak Croatian very good, and they don't speak English very good, but sometimes I meet people who I feel like I want to help them. And this is something I can do with people that doesn't require a lot of speaking. They just have to tune into what they're feeling.
Right.
So I'm interested in learning that as a starting point and then seeing how this all goes. And I want to do the training, and I'll talk to you another time about training and everything. So sorry, that took a long time. Sorry.
No, and you're the perfect audience for this in terms of what this hour is about. So I'm so glad you're here. What time in Croatia is it right now?
It's 6 o'clock. So we're 9 hours ahead of you. Mm-hmm. That's why I wrote you and said, when is this? Because if it's 9 o'clock at night, I can't do it.
Okay. All right.
Okay, that's exciting. So I'm Elise Bergeron, and I'm in Iowa, United States. And I found EFT first also like 4 years ago, and my husband has OCD and EFT.
Obsessive compulsive disorder.
And his was overthinking. So the EFT, although it helped, it just gave him more thinking. And I needed to find out scientifically, where did this come from? So I probably did the same search you did, Gabriella, and then I found TFT, and it has helped us so much, and it has helped my family, my grandkids. It's so easy to teach. And so, and I want to recommend Dr. Bray's materials, because although I did a lot of the materials through thought field therapy, I went back through Dr. Bray because I like his teaching method, and just the materials that he offers. I want to highly recommend them, because even though I'm at the voice technology level, or advanced, I think it's called, it was hard for me to get all the details. And so I needed to go back over, okay, why am I doing it this way? And Dr. Bray's materials have helped me a lot, and they're not that expensive. So And I use this every day, all day long, and so does my husband and my grandkids. I'm teaching it to them. So my goal is to be able to help people online and write a blog and just introduce people to this wonderful method. So that's why I'm here.
So, and what you're saying about needing to review the material, it is not unusual. I train people at all levels in this. And while you can start using TFT immediately and getting good results immediately, if you spend the time to review the materials, if you have an online course to review that course, if you have a book to reread that book, if you can take the next level of training, you know, I have a book that's available. I have an online training that you can do. I also do live trainings. I encourage people to do live trainings. They're so much better in terms of learning. And I also do live intermediate trainings or causal diagnosis, the next level of trainings. So just want to encourage you that as you study, just be patient with yourself, and it's worth staying with it. There's so much more material there. So I'm going to talk today a bit about one of Dr. Callahan's first and most powerful discoveries, and that is something called psychological reversal. Now, what he found, because he was getting responses in his muscle testing, which is how this all began, when he would muscle test his clients, what he would find is he would get a paradoxical response. He would expect them to respond one way with a muscle test, and they would respond polar opposite. And he began to notice that this was happening, you know, in a significant number of his clients that he would try to do muscle testing with and try to develop this with. And so he began to study it more fully. And what he found was that he was able to find a correction so that you could get the muscle test that you would expect or would be predicted. So you get a strong test when you were making an affirmative statement. You get a weak test when you were getting a negative or statement. So I'm going to read you just to make it a little, maybe, I don't know, you tell me if it's more or less complicated, but in Dr. Callahan's first book and in his glossary, he says psychological reversal is, start with, think of psychological reversal as a state or condition that blocks the natural healing and prevents otherwise effective treatment from working. So he's saying it's a condition or state that blocks otherwise treatments or healings from working. Evidence for the state of psychological reversal is revealed when an otherwise effective treatment does nothing. Then after psychological reversal is corrected, the same treatment suddenly works. A person may be fine in most domains of his life and may be psychologically reversed in just one or a selected few. So by that, he's saying that just because you correct it in one thought field or one major domain of your life that you're working in, you may have to correct it in others. So psychological reversal state is usually accompanied by negative attitudes and self-sabotaging behavior. The most interesting symptom of psychological reversal is that expressed concepts are often 180 degrees off, i.e. a person will say south when they mean north, but will say east or when they mean west. It seems to relate to a fundamental aspect of direction or polarity in elemental reality. So that's the way he describes it then. And the way that you recognize it is well, first let me just say that he was, after discovering that this condition existed, that there was a reversed polarization in the person, he found that there were 4 ways to correct it. And at the novice and algorithm level of TFT, we use one basic way to start to correct when we're working with people. Now, as we go along, you're going to hear me say there are 5 different corrections and 5 different types of psychological reversal. Again, we know which one we need to do by where we are in the treatment protocol. So the way I think about it is that the energy in the body, whether that's electromagnetic or chi, or it could be any kind of energy system that you want to work from. But that energy flow has a direction. It has a normal, healthy, positive, negative direction. It's bipolar. And so if your energy is flowing in the wrong direction on one meridian, in acupuncture, in Chinese medicine, or in a number of meridians, then nothing is going to work because your system is not communicating properly within itself. So it doesn't matter if you're working in Chinese medicine or Vedic medicine that works with chakras. We're still talking about there's a direction and a flow of energy. And when that direction and flow is not correct, it's not going to work. Now, I want to just be very clear with you that it's not a cognitive concept. It's not something that we have conscious control over. So sometimes when I say to people, oh, you have a psychological reversal, their immediate response is, oh, I'm thinking wrong. No, it's not about your thinking. It's about your experience in that moment as you enter that thought field. There may be conditions, times, when your energy will automatically go into this reverse state. Now, I think there's probably a purpose to that, but we don't need to get into all of that theory right now, other than to say that when that happens, then the healing that you're trying to do with TFT or EFT or any technique is not going to work. That's the definition of it. So when Roger found this condition existed, he then found these 4 ways that you can correct it. And he found that one of the ways that you could correct it is by tapping on meridian treatment points. He found another way was by using affirmations. And that's how affirmations got folded into TFT in the beginning. It was a way to attempt to correct for the reversals. Now, there's a couple other ways. We won't get into it here. Well, the third way that I just will mention is using rescue remedy. It's a Bach flower remedy, and Roger found that by using that, you could correct for reversals. For particularly stubborn, reoccurring, or chronic reversal states, we will encourage people to use some thought field therapy, to use some rescue remedy to help clear that so that we can get on with the treatment. So you've got this, this way of getting the energy to flow the right way by either tapping on meridians, by using affirmations, or by using rescue remedy. Now, what Roger found early on in his practice, because he was a psychologist and not a naturopath and not a nutritionist, that people didn't expect that when they came to him, he would say, here, take this substance, use this. And so he didn't use a lot of that in the beginning. He also, in the beginning, he used tapping on meridian points and using affirmations together. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because you both say that you've been trained in EFT. And so you have to understand that one of the major differences is that about 2 years after I was trained by Dr. Callahan, now that's 20 years ago, at least 20 years ago. No, it's 22 years ago. I was 1996. A couple years after I was trained, he called and he said, we're not using affirmations anymore. And I said, well, they seem to be so effective. But he said, we don't need them. It's just as effective to just tap on the meridian treatment points. And it's a lot less complicated than trying to get people to say specific words or to use specific statements, especially if people don't believe it. So the original tapping was you'd tap the side of your hand to correct, and you'd say, I accept myself even though I have this problem with whatever, right? And so the difficulty is that first you had to get people to be willing to say the words and understand what they are. And if you're in Croatian and you only speak English, it might be a problem. But the second piece of it is you're asking them to make a statement that they may or may not have a cognitive, top of the brain, conscious acceptance of. So they're saying the words and they're going, I accept myself, and they're going, I don't accept myself. I accept myself even though I have. So they'll say the words, but you end up in this fight with people to getting them to say things that they may or may not consciously have concluded about themselves or other people. So Roger was very good about saying, okay, we don't need this. It's all right. We'll just tap on the points that we need to make these corrections. It's much faster, it's much easier, and it's to the point, helps people understand that this is really working with the energy system of the body and not a cognitive technique about what you say. So that's what happened about 20 years ago. And as you know, EFT sort of went off in their own direction. And they don't really correct for reversals using tapping. And they still use affirmations, a lot of words in EFT. Thought field therapy, we try to stay away from the words. There's always room for talking after you have cleared the perturbations, the disturbance in the thought field, which is the fundamental cause of the distress, of the emotion. And you clear those perturbations, resolve them, assume them, whatever you want to describe it in the thought field, by tapping in a specific sequence when you're not in a state of reversal. Because if you're in a state of reversal, you can tap the right sequence, but you won't get the resolution because the information is not flowing in the right way. So, so when Roger learned that it was just you could tap to correct the reversals, what he found is that he was getting muscle testing that was accurate, that wasn't a false positive or a false negative. And once you have muscle testing that you don't have that problem with, you can trust it, and then you can follow the protocol. Now, the protocol we're talking about here is what you learn in the intermediate training, which is the causal diagnostics protocol. And it takes you through a whole process of using muscle testing to find specific tapping patterns. Not just the algorithms that he developed later on, but the specific patterns. And that's what Roger followed in order to get the results that he achieved. So, so in the algorithm level, we know where we need to tap to correct for the reversal or the presence of the reversal by where it occurs in the algorithm protocol. So in the basic training, there's a protocol. You follow these steps. If people are not getting the change that we expect or want, as presented by their subjective unit of distress rating, if they're not telling us that they're feeling the change in their body in a way that they're feeling less distress, we assume that the first problem is they're in a state of reversal. And so where that is in that protocol tells us what tapping we should do to correct that reversal. So now I'm just gonna, I want to be clear with you with that, what those tappings are. I'm going to share my screen at this moment. And I want you to see, and you can maybe get a screenshot later on of this for yourself or however you want to do this. But you see my screen there, and on there it says now there are 5 different types of PR. At the intermediate level, at the algorithm level where you're doing muscle testing, we have 5 different tests for each one of those types of reversals. And what's important about this is when you're in a state of reversal, no healing system works. Not TFT, not EFT, not EMDR, not even your own healing systems work as they should or as well as you would expect. So by tapping on the side of the hand, that's what we call correction for massive or specific reversals. Now, when we tap under the nose, that's for a condition called psychological reversal 2. And Roger just called it level 2. Now, there's a different test for it that you use when you're muscle testing. So he recognized it as a different kind of reversal. And when you see that one, you'll tap on the nose. Now, those are the main two that you use in algorithm or basic TFT. Now, there is another that you'll see in the protocol, which is called rubbing the sore spot. So what you're doing is you're rubbing the lymphatic points here in your chest. And there's usually one that's more tender than the other. Why you think about the problem, or why you think about the problem and all the other problems it causes in your life. And you would see that in the algorithm protocol. I don't put it up here because one, it's specific to that protocol. And the other part of it is that Roger really never used it much, because as he moved beyond muscle testing and voice technology, it just became apparent to him that he wanted to find the cause of this recurring reversal and to eliminate it. So I didn't put it on here because we don't use it that often, but in algorithms you will come across it. So now, if you correct for these reversals, now again, the next one is on the center of the chin. And it's the same point that you tap on when you're doing an algorithm, say, for shame. You would tap there, all right? Now, the next one is the middle finger. Now, the middle finger is the middle finger between the last knuckle and the bed of the nail. And it's important for you to recognize that in algorithms, there is no particular algorithm. We don't use the middle finger in the basic training or in the novice level. Now, doesn't mean it's not effective. It's another meridian, but it doesn't come up in the algorithms that we use. Well, I'll take that back. There is a couple of cases where you may run across it, but generally speaking, we don't do it. But again, this is in causal diagnosis, when we're creating specific patterns for individuals, we tap on the middle finger. It happens. It's fairly common. Then the fifth correction for reversal, which again has a different test, is just on the corner of the eye, on the outside of the eye. All right. Now, are you seeing the picture of me at the same time you're seeing my screen? Okay, just wanted to check and make sure, because I just demonstrated where those points were, and I just suddenly realized maybe they don't even, they're not seeing me. So those are the 5 points. Now, how will you use this at the algorithm level in a way that can be helpful to you and very powerful? The first two were early discoveries of Dr. Callahan. The center of the chin, the third one, PR3, we call that the alignment psychological reversal correction. That is more recent. That's been in the last few years. And then the middle finger and the outside of the eye are actually points that have just been added in the last, I would say year and a half. And when you're in the causal diagnosis, there's a specific phrasing that you use to test to get to those. But it's very helpful. So one of the ways that we're encouraging people who are novice or who are trained at the algorithm level to use all of this is, it's not very common that all of these reversals are going to occur all at once. But in certain conditions, you're going to find that the reversals come up, and they come up a lot. So when you're working on stubborn kinds of things, illnesses, injuries that won't heal, psychological shifts that you're trying to make, oftentimes when you're trying to change the way you feel or think about a condition or state, one of the things that we find is you can just, every time you think of that thing that you feel blocked in, is you do all 5 of these all at once, doing 5 or 10 to 15 tappings is what it says in each place, and just move through them as you're thinking about losing weight, or as you're thinking about being less angry, or as you're thinking about being more on time, as you're thinking about starting a new project and following through on it. Anything that you feel some kind of chronic block towards, it's worth giving this a try, because you will find that suddenly things that you were finding difficult are going to be less, because you've removed the psychological reversal, which blocks your own healing system and your own healing energies and intents. So, so you can just think about it. If you want to make a statement, you can say releasing all blocks to healing as you do all 5 of these things. Middle finger, outside of eye. I'm doing a little quick here. I'd slow it down and do a few more taps in each one. Or releasing all blocks to loving, supporting relationships, releasing all blocks to achieving financial independence, releasing all blocks to being at your ideal weight, all blocks to being with a calm and confident person. So, or being a calm and competent person. So, and you can do these, and we've got some reports that this has been very powerful and helpful for people who are struggling with reoccurring and chronic conditions. So I wanted to share that with you and to invite you to just experiment with it a bit. Try it for a couple of days. Do it, when you get up, and do it before each meal. So if you do prayer at meal, before you do your prayer, just think about what it is that you want to change or to accomplish or to be different in your life, and do these 5 PRs, and then do your prayer. So it's a way to kind of fold it into your life. If you don't do prayer, then just do it with a meal, or do it on your coffee breaks, or do it whenever you walk out the door. But think about making it a regular part of what you're doing, and give yourself a few days to see what happens with it. I think you'll be pleased. And it's a simple technique that anybody can use. So that's basically my presentation on this. Now, there's more about psychological reversal in the training. So I have an online training at my website that you can purchase. Or you can come to a live training. I do the algorithm trainings in 1 day or 2 days. I also do live causal diagnostics, the intermediate trainings. If you're interested, my next training is going to be kind of unique. I'm doing it in Texas with the trauma, trauma support services of North Texas, so a large group, and they're helping me get the word out. I just did a training for them with 250 people on for mental health providers in community disaster and what to do with that. So they're a great group of folks. I'm mentioning this because my next training, diagnostic training, I'm going to combine a 1-day algorithm and the 2-day causal diagnosis together at a special price. And it'll be in Dallas, Texas. And that is at the end of May. You can go to my website for more information about that. But you don't need to do any of that. you can be fine with just reading the book, watching the videos, and practicing TFT. And this is something you can add into that. So let's talk about it for a minute. What do you, questions, thoughts, concerns? Nothing?
I have I have a question.
Go ahead.
You can hear me okay? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I've been looking at the courses and the books and things, and I noticed that there's a lot of information out there that is old, or like you said, there's new things that have come up. What would you recommend is a good place to start today so that I'm not learning things that are outdated, let's say?
Well, the thing that you're going to recognize is that if you've heard just what I've said about Dr. Callahan's taken away having to use affirmations in this, if you read his original books or you read his Tapping the Healer Within, you're going to get a good way to use the algorithms in a very specific way. If you take my book, Healing Traumatic Stress Now, completely using TFT, you're going to get good information, and you might find that particularly useful for the population that you're working with. The book is a lay book. It doesn't have research or references in it. It's just for, here's some ways people have used TFT to help them specifically around trauma, and it has some basic information about trauma in it. So you could look there. That's what I would recommend. And then when you're ready to take an algorithm training, make sure whoever you're taking the training from is current in thought field therapy, Callahan techniques, thought field therapy, you know. And one of the tests might be is if you've got a trainer and they say, well, I want to come do this algorithm training, ask them if they spend much time working with the 5 PRs.
Okay.
If they say to you, no, there's only 2, you know, or at most 3, you know, then you know that they're not quite on top of it, and you can suggest they go back and refresh that before they go on. But the key here is to just start the process, because we're talking about the new stuff. It's mostly adding on or a little change to some old stuff. If you do my online algorithm one, you'll find it to be very straightforward and will give you a good grounding in it. I like mine better. Suzanne Conley has one, and she has an excellent book for therapists that's out there. Joanne Callahan has an online training for algorithms. I just like mine the best because I think I present the material in the most straightforward and usable manner. So thank you for the little advertisement.
That sounds great.
That
sounds great.
All right.
Perfect.
I used your materials, and I have a problem with learning too much information. Yours seemed really concise and easy to follow, and then I can go back to it. It just seems, I learned so much, and I'd already gotten all the way to the voice technology. So I highly recommend it. Plus, you have a wonderful website where you give a lot of free videos.
Yeah.
So,
and I also want to remind people that there is an Apple app for doing the crisis tapping pattern and also all of the algorithms. So you can find that if you go to my website and click on the Apple Store, it'll take you right to it. Okay, so other thoughts or questions about psychological reversal? No?
I haven't tried it yet, so I don't know yet.
That's okay. This is this format of doing video calls is fairly new. This is the first one that I've done at the novice or algorithm level. We're going to do this on a regular basis, probably again in 2 months, and see if we get more interest in continuing it. And you know, and so I part of what I want to do is just open it up to any questions or issues, anything you'd like to discuss for a few minutes.
This really helped me a lot when I did it. When I've done this, like on weight, ideal weight, or but getting in the habit of doing it is, you know, what I'm thinking, what is the wording I can use to remove blocks to being in that habit? Because I'm not getting in the habit of doing it every day.
Okay. Any blocks to establishing healthy patterns? Because that's what a habit is. It's a pattern, right? So you could just say any blocks to establishing, or you could just say establishing healthy patterns.
Okay.
And tap as you think about establishing healthy patterns. And you're gonna, I'm doing it because it sounds like a good one. I should probably work on this one too. Any blocks to establishing healthy patterns.
It really works. I mean, I've used this, and it's just like, I'm grabbing different food than I would normally grab, and I
Oh,
go, who is
good.
this person? Yeah, this really works. I just need to use it more on relationships and some of those things. So
Can I ask you, I'm sorry, is it Elise?
Yes.
yes.
Can I ask Elise a question? Do the other people in your family and in your like close circle of friends, will they let you do it with them, or are they reluctant? Because I used EFT before to get some really good results, and I thought, oh, now I want to try it on everyone, and people are they're so reluctant. They're just scared and they run away. What was your what
Well,
was your
I've been doing this now for like 4 years. My experience is my immediate family. I homeschooled too, so they're used to my ideas and they're
Okay.
very open. But
Mhm.
my friends, I have really broken into that with my friends. That's why I want to do it online, is because I think you have to be at a place where you're open to using something unconventional. Like, I didn't want to use medication. I didn't want my husband on medication. I was really searching for an alternative to medication, and it worked. So, and now my functional health group, they're really interested and supportive of me because I'm in this small town of Iowa. I mean, Des Moines isn't very big. So that's really exciting because they're pushing me to go, okay, what are you doing? And show us what you're doing. But I would agree. People, it's so different. People won't be open to it unless they seriously have a problem and they want to get over it. With trauma, like what you're talking about, it's such a great avenue because you're going to help them and they might not believe you, but if they're willing to do the tapping with you, you're going to change their life. And it doesn't really matter if they believe you. That's what I've seen. I've helped family members like my mom. It's helped her and she doesn't even realize how it's helped her. And it doesn't, does that make sense,
Yeah,
Dr.
yeah.
Gray? You know, you'll
Yeah,
be able to
what I
help.
would suggest to you is when you're trying to get people to do this, talk less and tap more. So, if
Rewrite
you're
that
with a
down.
girlfriend and she's in serious distress about something and you can just see it, you just, you don't talk, say, look, hey, honey, let's just do this with me. Come on. It'll feel like you'll feel better after you do this. It'll feel like somebody put a warm blanket around you. It'll be nice. Just do this with me. And you start tapping, and more than likely, they'll do it with you. And
Oh,
once they have an experience of it, then it's easier to begin to talk about it. When you try to convince people of it before they have had the experience, they just look at you like you're speaking another language or you're in a, it's just a different way to experience the world because they're in the top of their head and they're trying to figure out all of this stuff. But what's really going on is at the bottom of the brain and in the body is all this emotional distress. And it doesn't need those words. It needs the tapping and the right sequence to downregulate all of that. And then when those things calm down, when the bottom of the brain is deactivated or downregulated, and your body is not, your heart's not pumping 100 beats per minute, 1,000 beats per minute, and you're not feeling the physical or emotional pain, then's the time to have the discussion. So whenever I train, whenever I teach, I always start by saying, hey, let's do this together. Whether they understand it or not, and generally speaking, they will do it just to be kind.
Okay.
They'll go, oh, this poor crazy man, we should be nice to him. And they'll do it, Right, you just start tapping, right? And next thing you know, they're tapping with you.
Okay.
So other questions? And one of the things I'm interested in is what other things would you like to, as we go along, would you see doing this hour and focusing on anything in particular or any questions in particular?
You mean as novices or just
Yeah,
in
yeah, as
general?
novices or as algorithm training. I'm just wondering if there's, well, let me just ask you this. Did you find this discussion of psychological reversal useful to you?
Yes, yes, I did.
Okay. So
I mean, I'm brand new though, so and I really like your style. You're very you get the information across in a very easy way, right? I can imagine what your training materials are like, because a lot of things that I've read, I had the same problem as Elise, right?
Yes.
That Elise or Elise?
Elise, like
Alice, sorry, Alice, like Alice, but with a Elise. A
exactly.
lot, they throw a lot of information at you, and you're trying to write it down, and you go back and read your notes, you don't know what to make of it. So I like this step-by-step, easy approach, and I like what you're doing with do it with me. As you're doing it, you're understanding it, and I don't know. It's
Okay.
something I don't know, appeals to me. I like that. So you might not think you're giving us anything new, but actually just you saying it and doing it, just some of it's just reaffirming, oh, okay, I got that right, and we're going in the right direction.
Well, thank
Because
you.
there is this, because it is like, I'm not a professional, so there is this weirdness of, oops, I'm going into this world where I don't belong, and oh my God, I'm going to ruin somebody. Or so it's good just to have you there saying, look, you can't hurt anybody, and it's okay, and to invite us into this world.
And
That
you
helps.
will learn as you go along. There's so much that you can do to help people. And thank you for that compliment. That was very nice. I appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
What I'm thinking is that I do want to talk more about some algorithms that you might find useful that aren't the standard ones, but we do include them in the algorithm training materials. So I might talk about that the next time around, because they're kind of interesting. A couple of them are kind of interesting. One of them is around self-esteem. So I would invite you to come back again and to invite your friends or anybody else who's interested. I'm sorry, I only speak English. I'm culturally and linguistically limited. So,
Me too.
well, you know, I wish.
Croatia's a hard one. Oof.
Right. And I don't know if TFT's been translated into Croatian or not. Dr. Callan's book's been translated into 14 different languages already.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to trauma relief, www.traumarelief.org, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. It's the Thought Field Therapy Foundation's trauma relief blog, and I'm not sure I got it right. But if you email me, I'll make sure you get it right. But it's trauma relief. I think it's tftraumarelief.org. And if you go there, you'll find the crisis tapping pattern has been translated into a whole bunch of languages, like 15 different languages. And so you might find, when I find myself working with somebody and I don't have the language, I can always go to that website, click on their language or language that we both understand, and or that they understand, and they can get the basic tapping patterns without having to get anything more complicated. That's what's going to help somebody who's in a crisis.
Okay,
So,
that sounds good. That sounds
so
good.
that's available to you. And we had some work done in your neck of the woods. Carl Johnson did some work in, I don't know if it was Croatia or
Bosnia, maybe.
I can't remember now.
Bosnia, something.
Yeah. But he went back, he was there several times. He was a psychologist for the Veterans Administration, and he went there several times with several people and did a lot of work in that area and had great success with it. And I don't think he spoke any Slavic languages. So I know he didn't speak any Slavic, but he, at least when he began. But so there is more information that's available to you for that.
Okay.
So last comments. I think we need to wrap this up.
Okay. I'm good.
You good? All right. All right. Well, I will talk to you again soon. If you join my email list, you can get to on my email list. If you just text 22828 and then put in the letters TFTCSD. Thought Field Therapy Center of San Diego.
Could you repeat TFT? CST?
CSD. Charlie, Sam, Diego. And when you do that, you will then, it'll come up, it'll say, give us your email, and then that'll get you on my list. Or you can go
Okay.
to my website and fill in the pop-up or whatever. So again, that's 22828. And just put in TFT CSD. And then you'll get notice of the next one, which will be a couple of months from now.
Okay.
All right.
It was great,
Super.
Gabriella.
Thanks. It was nice meeting you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Talk to you again.
Okay. Bye. Thank you. Bye.